In this tutorial, we set up a user login system with Laravel. In this tutorial, we cover creating a new Laravel project. We create a new database. Now we're using XAMPP in this tutorial, needed for the web server and the database service. If you want to install this software, check out the previous tutorial. So we move on then to install the front-end dependencies. We migrate the new model to the database, and then we start the project and create and try the login. So to try and avoid any problems when you're undertaking this tutorial, so here I'm using the XAMPP server. Like I said, the previous tutorial shows you how to set up this environment. You might also obviously be utilizing the homestead environment. If you don't know what that is, then by all means have a little look. So you're also going to need Node.js installed because we're going to need the Node Package Manager, npm. So head over to the website and install if you're on Windows. Obviously there are alternative ways on Linux and Mac to install Node. In this tutorial, I try not to explain the code. I have left that towards the end of the tutorial where you can see the video timestamps where I've provided some extra explanation about some of the commands that you're using. So before we start, I just make sure that XAMPP is turned on, which it is, and we can test to make sure it's working by typing in the loopback address. And so we're going to be working within XAMPP in the htdocs folder. So we start up the Visual Studio Code or whatever package you're using. I'm just going to open the folder to my XAMPP htdocs folder. So this is where I'm going to build the project. So open up a new terminal. So I'm using a virtual machine here, so I'm not going to use the terminal here. I'm just going to use the Windows command prompt. Makes it easy for you to see the commands. So I just need to make sure that I'm working within my project folder. So I change the directory. There we go. Okay, so now we're ready to start. So first of all, we're going to make a new Laravel project. So we do that by using the composer. So make sure that composer is installed if you haven't already done so. Again, check out the previous tutorial. And then we're going to create a project and we're going to call this project app. So that might take a few minutes to load. If we now look inside of our htdocs folder, we now see the app folder, which we're going to work from. So let's just move a CD into our new app called app. So next up, we're now going to install the front-end packages or make them available, the Vue scaffolding. So we're going to be utilizing Vue here. So we run the composer require Laravel/UI. So once that's completed, we now type in PHP artisan UI view auth to generate the login registration scaffolding. You can see that we are now prompted to run npm install and the npm run dev to compile your fresh scaffolding. Now, if you don't have Node installed at this point, this would be a good time to install Node and the npm package so that we can run this command. So go ahead and type in npm install and the npm run dev. So with that installed, we now have to set up a database. So just make sure that the server's on. In this case, I don't think it is, no. Okay, so I'm just going over to XAMPP and just start that. Okay, so now we need to head into phpmyadmin. From here we can simply just create a database. So all that we need to do is give a database a name and press create. So back in our folder, we need to head into the env file and just configure our database. So you can see here that we're using MySQL and our database host and the port number is okay. So the database we called new. So just head back into the browser and check that. So that's what we've just created. Now, by default, the username for this database is root and the password, there isn't one. So we can now just save that. So the next task is to migrate all the models over to our database to actually create the data in the database, or to actually create the table, in the database, so that then we can create a user and password and log into our system. So from here, we just need to type in PHP, and notice that I'm in the app directory, artisan, and then just migrate. So you can see that the tables have been migrated. So I should now be able to view them by going into my new database called new. And you can see now I've got the tables ready, one of them being users. At the moment, there aren't any users. So the first thing we need to do is create a new user. Okay, so we're now ready to turn on the Laravel server. So from here, I just type in PHP artisan serve. So that's going to start the server. Notice the address, and we then go into that page, and you can see now the server is running. So we've got two options up the top here, login and register. So if you go ahead and just register a new user, there we go. So now we've got the registration facility in place. You can see now if I go into the database and then go to new and the table users, we now have the new user in place. So I can also log out. So that's all the facilities that we have at the moment. Log in, register, log out. So let's just try logging in. There we go. So you notice that the address here, /home, is where people are directed when they log in. So we can also just test to see if this is working. If I log out and then try to navigate to home, you can see that we're taken to the login page. So the home page is protected via the login system. So let's have a look at the first command we used. We used composer, create project, preferred dist, Laravel app. So the first command here, composer. So composer is the manager, the package manager for PHP here. So we're going to use composer to actually install and manage the packages in our Laravel application. So that's the first thing, and why we use composer. We need it to actually run the installers and manage them. So the next command is create project, which is self-explanatory. We want to create a project. And then we use the command preferred dist. So there's two commands we can use here. And this is basically just saying where we want to download Laravel from. And then we move on to Laravel. So we basically say create a project. We say where we want to download Laravel, or the package, and then what package we want to download, Laravel. And then we run the command Laravel, which is basically saying it, create a new project in Laravel. And then we give the name of the folder and where we're going to actually install Laravel, which is the app. So that explains that command. So next up, we ran the composer require Laravel /UI. So again, we're using the composer package manager. And then we're saying that this project or this app requires the Laravel UI, which is the authentication scaffolding in Laravel. So that's what we wanted. We wanted to create an authentication app, or we wanted to create authentication for our app. So we needed this package to be available in our app. So like I say here, scaffolding, what does that mean? So it roughly aims to quickly set up a skeleton for our app. So it sets up all the basic elements that we need to get our app running. So next up, we use the PHP artisan UI vue-auth. So here what we're doing, we're setting up Vue in our application. So what we want to do is quickly scaffold all the routes and the views that we need for the authentication. Remember that we had, when we set up the configuration, or once we configured the tutorial, we had all the different links available to log in, register, go to the home, etc. So that all needed setting up. So the quick way, or a quick way of doing that, was to run this command. So like I said, this will also install the layout view, the registration, and all the login views that we had. So then we run the npm commands. So I guess in general terms, what's happened is that we've installed some new packages onto our project. And now what we need to do is make sure that everything is glued together. that everything's going to work. So we might need to install smaller packages to get things talking to one another. So we run npm install to kind of achieve that, to make sure everything is installed correctly. And then we run the npm run dev, which essentially just compiles everything and readies our application to serve to the internet. So simply put, we run the PHP artisan serve. So here we're creating a lightweight PHP server, which is going to host our application. So let's not confuse it with the XAMPP server. So the whole point of running XAMPP, at least the server, the web server, is so that we can actually access phpmyadmin and just see the database that we're utilizing, and of course create the database. So here we run PHP artisan serve to actually run a lightweight server so that Laravel can run within that environment.